Overall, the trip probably would have cost about $12,000 if we paid cash for it all. Our out of pocket costs, because there's some cost when you book award flights and everything. It was like $1,200.
Well, I have the pleasure today of being with Lee Huffman, writer at BaldThoughts and host of the We Travel There podcast. Lee, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here today.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to being able to chat about travel tips and being able to save money on travel and be able to maximize rewards.
Yeah, well, we're all about experiences here. As many of the listeners know, when my boys became bar mitzvah age and we were looking to celebrate that rather than having a party, we offered them both the experience of, a 4-hour party or maybe a vacation. And my older son chose salmon fishing in Alaska, and we went on an Alaskan cruise. And my younger son chose going on safari in South Africa before the pandemic, 2019, which was excellent. So we're excited to talk about travel because it's something that my family loves. But just to give our listeners some perspective here, we'll talk a lot about what you're doing today. But how did you get here? How did Lee Huffman get into being a writer at Bald Thoughts and a podcast host and travel?
Well, so I used to work in corporate finance for a bank in LA, and it was very numbers heavy, all Excel all day. Occasionally throw in a PowerPoint, but you really don't want your bankers and finance people getting too creative, right? So I needed a creative outlet for my thoughts, and so I came up with my travel blog because my wife and I have always been traveling, using miles and points, and everybody always thought that because I made good money at the bank, I was doing it with that money, right? And I said, no, no, no. Obviously, you don't know me that well because I'm very frugal and I don't want to spend all of my money on that. I'd rather use that money to invest and save. And so what I do is I use miles and points to travel. And I started the blog basically showing people, here's how we travel and here's how we are able to afford all these experiences. And here's how you can do it too. Not everybody's always followed those lessons. Sometimes they go, "Oh, that's too much hassle." But I always tell them, "Look, think how many hours you had to work to be able to earn that money for that vacation, versus me telling you, hey, maybe you got to spend an hour or two on some of these strategies that I share." And my strategies always went out.
All right. So, I mean, it's interesting that you were doing that when you had this, full-time role in corporate finance. What kind of got you interested in, travel hacking? Was it just simply the financial motivation, or were there other, impetuses to you doing that?
Sure, sure. So, like, I grew up traveling. My dad, was a bankruptcy attorney, and so he, had the flexibility to be able to take time off, and we go on all these different road trips and occasionally fly and everything. So I grew up traveling, and that's pretty much all I've ever really known, right? And so when my wife and I started dating, instead of going to like steak dinners and a movie and all that stuff, like with courting, actually I said, hey, look, I have the Southwest Companion Pass. I have all these, hotel points, and I have a timeshare and all these other things. Let's go travel and let's experience things together. And I think part of the thing is, you get to know somebody better when you're traveling because, all the unexpected things that can pop up,
Mhm.
and also just that dedicated time together. And so by traveling and, using all the different benefits I had, we were able to just have all these amazing experiences. And sometimes we would travel 2 or 3 weekends a month. Those were our trips, like going to Vegas or going to Philadelphia or San Francisco or Chicago. All these great cities that have a lot of fun to offer, and that's what we do instead of just sitting next to each other watching a movie for 2 hours.
Right. So when did you kind of start working on the hack piece, right? Because you were traveling a lot. So where did your interest in, hey, let's figure out a way to hack this a little bit more and make our dollars go further, if you
Oh,
will?
sure. So, like I said, I had the Southwest Companion Pass. So basically, whenever I flew, whether I was using miles or points, my wife got to fly for free. She was my designated companion. So automatically, right there, that was a huge hack. Basically, everything got cut in half as far as the cost for our flights. But really got me into what I call like the kind of like the Matrix moment. You either take the red pill or the blue pill. Was when she wanted to go to Paris, and I said, well, and I thought I was doing really great. I had the companion pass. I had some, you know, old school like SPG Starwood Preferred Group, which is now Marriott. I had, a lot of those points and everything, and I thought I was doing great. And then all of a sudden she wanted to go to Paris. I'm like, well, Southwest doesn't fly to Paris, baby. Like,
I was thinking the same thing when you were saying this.
and so then I really had to start, diving really deeper into, how miles and points worked and how to earn them and everything else. And so it opened my mind as far as what the real possibilities were. And we were able to book a trip. Whereas my wife, me, our son at the time, he was 26 months old, and my mother-in-law, all four of us flew using miles and points to go to Paris and back. And basically we were there for like about 12 days. And so that's really what got me into it all. And I just, again, I thought I was doing great with all the domestic stuff. And then once I
Right.
realized, the power of being able to travel, especially being able to fly in business class and everything else internationally, that's just like a whole nother level. And once you start doing that, I mean, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So, I mean, listen, let's say I'm listening to this. I enjoy travel, right? But I typically just go online, book the trip for myself, my family, and hey, I'm like interested. How do I figure out a way to stretch the dollar, or even make my trip longer with really no additional outlay or cost? Maybe do the same trip for the same amount of money. What's your best travel hack for a beginner, somebody who's just looking to perhaps explore this for the first time?
Yeah, I would say, obviously a lot of people in my position, they talk about credit cards because that's one of the easiest ways to get a big bunch of miles and points like very quickly. But not everybody's ready to do that, right? Maybe your credit's not that good, or maybe you're saving up for a house and you don't need those extra credit inquiries affecting your credit. The number one thing you can do is taking advantage of the money that you're spending today by one, you registering for things like dining programs. Pretty much all the airlines that are out there, American and Southwest and Delta, etc. They all have dining programs where you register your credit card, and when you eat at participating restaurants, you get extra miles on top of the rewards you're going to earn from your debit or credit card that you're already using. Then there's other programs like Dosh that, again, you're shopping at participating retailers, you're getting some cash back, those type of things. Taking advantage of those is huge. You're like, you're not getting a 50,000 miles at once, but all those little things add up. Same thing, I generally don't never go to the mall. I avoid going to stores as much as I can and everything else, and I do all my shopping online. And instead of going directly to, like, say, Kohl's or Target or Home Depot or whatever, going through a shopping portal first, you can earn cash back, you can earn airline miles, you can earn points on that purchase. Again, this is on top of what you're already earning from your credit card or debit card. So this way, you're maximizing the money you're already spending to be able to earn those miles and points. And again, you're not going to get 50,000 points right away, but you're going to be able to add it all up. It's kind of like, just like when you're saving for retirement. It's You're adding up, small little dollar amounts that add up quickly over time. And doing that, these are all free programs. There's no cost to participate, no cost to join. And if you focus all the rewards into like one program, whether it's American or Delta or United or whoever you like, you're going to be able to accelerate your path to being able to get a free flight and free hotel rooms.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I did the same thing, just not in travel. I done it a long time ago for my kids' education. We had used to shop through the You Promise web portal that used to give us money back that would ultimately be deposited into our kids' 529 plan, and we accumulated thousands of dollars over a long period of time that we didn't necessarily have to contribute. We were doing the same thing that we would normally do, shopping at the same places we were normally shopping, and we were just getting these extra benefits.
I love it. Basically maximizing the money you're already spending. You're getting free tools, free rewards. Like you said, we both have kids. It's getting closer to summertime, etc. Uh, Also, when you're doing your online shopping, a lot of these portals, whether it's Father's Day, Mother's Day, back to school, Black Friday, stuff like that, on top of the rewards that you're going to earn, a lot of times, if you spend a certain amount through their portal, like, so if you concentrate your spending through one portal, they have additional bonuses on top of the rewards you're earning from your card and on top of the rewards you're earning from the portal. They give you extra bonus points or miles for spending a certain amount through the portal. So basically, you're getting like a triple benefits from the same dollars that you're already spending.
Sure. Is there a particular portal that you like the best?
I always go through. There's a website called cashbackmonitor.com. It's kind of, if you think of like a Expedia, right, where it basically gathers everything from a bunch of different sites. It's kind of like
Aggregator.
that. It basically it
Yeah.
monitors the cashback rewards, the miles, the points from a bunch of different platforms. And when you type in Kohl's or Staples or Target or whatever, it'll tell you here's the rewards that are offered by all the different platforms. And so then you can pick and choose. So like right now, we may be planning a trip for for the summertime, and so we're focused on rewards, right? But
Hmm.
if maybe travel isn't like the right time for you right now, you can then say, oh, you know what, I'd rather get cash back, and it'll tell you what the cash back is. So maybe you're trying to
Gotcha.
you pay off some debt, trying to save up for a house, or maybe you're a little bit behind on retirement savings. Cash back might be more important to you at this point, so you focus there.
Okay. So, I mean, you gave us a little bit of background about how you started, getting into this, right? So, how do you move from being a VP at a major bank to becoming, the writer and the blogger called under Bald Thoughts? How does that transition take place?
Well, it wasn't easy. I will say
Mhm.
that. I mean, it's one of those things where I was at the bank for like 13 years and had a good salary, good title, and all those things. But as I'm sure you're aware, like when you get into those type of positions, it is very stressful, right? I
Mhm.
had a long commute. We lived in Orange County by Disneyland, and I worked in downtown LA, and so it was an hour and a half, commute each way. So 3 hours a day, I'm on the road and when
On
you
a
have a
good
young
day,
family,
right?
was that?
On a good day, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then on top of that, we had young children, and we were dropping our kids off at 6:30 in the morning, picking them up. We were like the first ones there. We were the last ones to pick them up at 6:30 at night, and it's like that's really not what I envisioned being a parent was all about. Like I
Mhm.
didn't want to spend just an hour and a half or 2 hours a day with my kids. I want to spend a lot more time with them, especially while they're young and in those formative years, right? And
Sure.
so our house had appreciated a lot. We paid off a lot of debt, and we had some good savings, and we just kind of talked about like again when we used to go on all these trips when we were dating. Part of it was obviously getting to know each other, but also part of it was you're young and you're like, where can we imagine living?
Mhm.
What are some of the cities we can do? And so anytime we traveled, we always kind of cheered for the home team whenever we went to games. And we tried to like walk around as much as possible. That way we can kind of get a feel for the city a little bit better. Right. And
Mhm.
so again, when it came time to thinking about it, like maybe this job isn't right for me anymore. I'm getting very stressed out. I'm missing spending time with the kids. My wife was working um, in HR for a aerospace manufacturing company. She had to work on weekends and at night, because they're a 24/7 operation.
Mhm.
And it was just very tough to be able to juggle all that. So if we move to a lower cost living area, I'd be able to spend time with the kids. She'd be able to focus on her career, and I would just figure out how to make money, whether it's driving Uber, writing blog articles, or obviously we know podcasting isn't a big money making career yet. So that
Mhm.
wasn't the answer, but we just figured I'll figure things out, and we end up coming here to Nashville. We've been here about 6 years,
Mhm.
and we love it. Obviously, every state has pros and cons. California has pros and cons. Tennessee has pros and cons, but being in a lower cost situation allowed me to focus on my business, allowed us to move forward in some of our other financial goals, and then also living closer to family that's on the East Coast. And so overall, it's just a better overall life experience for us this way. I still miss all my friends. I grew up and lived in California all my life, and all the friends were like family. But being able to
Well, you
spend
should be
time
able to
with
get a free flight home to
oh
see
yeah,
him, I guess, right?
yeah. Oh, for sure. I can go see him anytime I want, but it's just one of those things where we're focused on raising the kids,
Sure.
and that's really what the focus is. And when you ask, like, what I do for a living, it's like, freelance writing, full-time blogger, podcast host, but also full-time soccer dad.
Right.
When the kids are doing like soccer camps and stuff like that in the summer, I literally bring a tent, I bring my cooler, I have a chair, and I have my computer. And I just sit there and hang out with them and support them. And while I'm writing articles all day, and so it's such a
Nice.
great like work life balance that it just makes it such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, we call it work life harmony here because I feel like work life balance gives the impression that you're giving up something to get another thing. So
Oh yeah.
we like work life harmony. Feel free to use it. I didn't trademark it. I'm sure somebody else has, but I love that. I love that. So tell me, up to date, what's been your best trip from a travel hack? What's been the best experience you've been able to create?
Well, I guess I kind of look at my trips as kind of like children, right? Where you can't say like my I have one child is favorite over the other. So I mean, because there's so many like amazing experiences with. Sometimes I travel solo with the kids, individually or collectively, and sometimes occasionally I get to go on trips just my wife and me. But one of the best ones I would say was
Well,
when we went.
listen, we're gonna. I think you might be jumping ahead. We're gonna talk about maybe the favorite place that might you might
Oh.
have to give up one of your kids there and take a pick. But clearly there's probably one experience or trip that you've been able to use a hack that it was like a significant amount of money that
Oh
you've
sure,
really been able to use that hack to reduce it down to zero or somewhere around there. So
sure.
what's been the best hack that you've had?
I would say one of the best ones was my wife and I went to Italy in December of 2016, and we were there for about 10 days, and we flew business class there and back. Stayed at like just some really amazing hotels. We stayed at the Park Hyatt Milan. We stayed at the Waldorf Astoria in Rome. We stayed on a place in the Cinque Terre up on the top. Just had just amazing views of the little bay there. Overall, the trip probably would have cost about $12,000 if we paid cash for it all. Our out of pocket costs, because there's some costs when you book award flights
Right.
and everything, it was like $1,200.
Wow.
So basically, we saved 90% essentially on this just really amazing experience. And it was just it like when you have kids, it's sometimes tough to get away where it's just you and your spouse, and you got to be able to carve out time like that, right? And so
Hmm.
being able to spend that time together, when it wasn't just a weekend, it wasn't just like one night, it was like a full 10 days. It allowed us just to kind of reconnect, and it was in a December, so we were able to sit down there and talk about like what our goals were for the upcoming year and all those things. And it's just really a really great experience for us to be able to spend time together and experience some just really remarkable hotels and flights and everything else.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of effort would you say it would take for the average person who hasn't done this before to accumulate or be able to be in a position to book a trip like that and kind of reduce the cost by 90%? What type of efforts involved in that?
Some of it is just you're going to spend a few hours here and there. One of the things that I did, because I'm really good at earning miles, but I'm not always the best at figuring out the right redemptions. And so, just like you have a regular travel agent, in the cash world of travel, there's actually like essentially travel agents for the miles and points world. And so they help you find out the best ways to redeem your miles and points. That way you can reduce your costs as much as possible, but also get the best routing, maybe get really great experiences in the air. And so actually, I paid somebody for that trip, and it was like $250 a person, and that's
Hmm.
included in that $1,200. So of
Wow.
that 1,200, I think about 500 or 600 was paying fees for somebody to book the flights for us.
Hmm.
And so
I mean,
uh,
do you
for
need like a
somebody,
certain level of points to,
yeah,
to hire that kind of person, or is there like
no,
a
no,
level that you would say?
you just, I mean, you pay them cash to do it. But I would say one of the great things about being married or having a partner is that you can take advantage of the different bonuses for credit cards for yourself, but also in our world they call it a player two. So you have your spouse or your significant other that is also getting some of the cards, and sometimes you get the same miles and points. That way you can try to book the same flights, and sometimes you get opposite cards or a different type of card that kind of complements what you're trying to do, right?
Mhm.
And so, in order for somebody to be able to do something like that, basically book a European vacation and save a bunch of money, it would take, I would say, probably a year to 2 years to be able to get a couple different cards, to be able to put your spending on it, to earn those miles and points, and be able to get to that type of level. And then also taking advantage of the different cards benefits you have, because airline cards and airline status, I could really care less. I'm not big on airline status, because unless you are like one of those people that is constantly gone, for
Mhm.
me, the benefits really don't matter that much.
Right.
Versus somebody who is like at a hotel, if you have the right credit card, you could be a top level status, the same as somebody who basically spends every night in a hotel all year long, right?
Right. Yeah.
And on top of that, a lot of these credit cards have a really amazing benefits, like free hotel nights. I love like the IHG card, because when you're redeeming points, you get the fourth night free when you're redeeming points. So basically,
Mhm.
automatically, you're saving 25% just right there.
Mhm.
The Hilton and the Marriott, they gave you fifth night free, right? And so taking advantage of some of these other benefits and features of the cards allows you to stretch your miles and points that much further and be able to save that much more money, right? So not only are you
Yeah.
saving the money by redeeming points instead of cash, but you're taking advantage of these promotions and benefits to save even more.
Yeah, great points. So now's the time we're going to have you pick between your kids here. I mean, you've traveled to some pretty amazing places I've seen, and I'd like to know, and I think the listeners would like to know, what was your favorite?
I would say probably my favorite was the second time we went to Sydney. We actually booked a side excursion up to this place called Townsville. So it's like up in the northern coast, kind of near Cairns and in that area. And the thing that I really enjoyed the most was actually hugging a wombat. So there's this place called Billabong Wildlife Sanctuary, and when you go there, they have these wombats that come out and uh, literally have a picture of me just sitting there hugging them, and
Wow.
it's basically like a huge teddy bear essentially, and they're just super
Mm.
chill. And some people think like, okay, maybe you're taking advantage of these animals and like putting them in a bad situation, etc. So there was a storm. They told us about this, that they like a typhoon or something that came through about 2 years before we were there, and the park got shut down because everything was flooded, everything like that. And essentially, this wombat had been used to getting hugged every day by all these people coming through there. When they were closed, he basically got depressed,
Right.
and they saw that he was like, he looked like he was sick, and essentially they said, okay, we need to quarantine him. We can't allow him to be near the visitors because he's sick. We don't want him spreading anything or getting sick by or be exposed to the germs of the travelers. But really, what it was, he was just depressed. And as soon as he saw that another wombat was getting the hugs, he perked up. He came over there and he's like, "No, wait, this is my job. I'm the one that's supposed to be getting hugged." And so, but
Yeah.
just things like that. Like I always look for unique experiences where we can just find things that you can't find anywhere, anyplace else. And something like that is just, I mean, I'll tell that story for the rest of my life. And just being able to hug that wombat was huge on my bucket list.
That's great. I'll have to keep that in mind if I ever make it there for sure. So, the tagline of your podcast, "We Travel There," is "Travel like a local."
Mhm.
What do you think that traveling like a local implies into the travel experience?
I think that a lot of times when people travel, um, they're just hitting, like the touristy spots, right? Like they only they don't really like kind of dig beneath the surface and actually really connect with like the people and stuff like that. And I think because of that, that's where sometimes a lot of travelers get a bad reputation, right? Oh, you're just here to see like the Louvre and like the Eiffel Tower, and you're not really spending time in our local communities and supporting like the smaller shops and everything like that. So one of the things I always do with the podcast is try to encourage people to make a deeper connection with the city. That's why we interview all these local experts, because
Mhm.
obviously, if you go to Paris, you're going to see the Eiffel Tower, you're going to see the Louvre and Arc de Triomphe and some of those things. But what else can you do while you're there to have a deeper connection to the city? What restaurants can you go to that aren't just the top three on Yelp?
Right.
TripAdvisor and stuff like that. Where do the locals go eat? How can you get that local experience and be able to get away from the tourist areas, but also support those small businesses? And to me, that's what it's all about. Like I'm like that guy. Whenever I travel, I'm like talking to the person on the bus next to me, at the bar next to me, asking questions and probably bugging them a little bit. But what I found is that most people, when you give them a chance, they love talking about their city. Right?
Right.
They can't
Yeah,
stop
sure.
talking about it. I mean, that's like it's like a piece of them. And when you ask them, "Hey, what do you recommend?" and like, "What restaurant should I go to?" and those types of things, they love to be able to talk about it. And
Mhm.
so to me, again, it's just it broadens the experience and it gives you something unique to talk about, whether it's with your partner that traveled with you or to your friends. But also, again, like supporting the small businesses. And when I do my podcast, I don't just focus on the major cities. I focus on a lot of smaller cities as well,
Sure.
because I think a lot of the smaller cities have a lot to offer too. And oftentimes they just get overlooked. And
Mhm.
so I look at it that maybe we're going to do the bigger cities a lot of times, right? I have Paris, that I've done, and London and all those type of things. But also, like I just did one recently for Leiden in the Netherlands, and it's just outside of Amsterdam and about halfway between Amsterdam and The Hague. And so it's a city that most people had never heard of, and I honestly I'd never heard of it either. But when you hear about it, you're, oh my god, that sounds like an amazing place to go visit. And maybe you're not going to fly all the way to the Netherlands just for Leiden, but while you're there in Amsterdam, you're like, hey, I've heard about this great city. I'm going to go take a day or two off my trip, or I'm going
Sure.
to extend the trip a little bit so that way I can go experience some of the things I heard about. And that's really
Yeah.
what I want people to do, is just kind of have that deeper travel connection with cities and have experiences that are beyond the ordinary.
Yeah, great points. Great points for sure. So let's take a shift for a minute to, maybe more of the marketing aspect of things, because that's
Mhm.
what it's really about.
Mhm.
You're a content creator really at
Yeah.
heart. So, what has been your best piece of content to date? What's given you the best, I guess, ROI in your opinion?
Well, I would say, I mean, this as a content creator, that sometimes the articles that you love the best, that you really enjoy, don't always get like the most clicks and always
Sure.
don't get the most traffic and everything like that. But like and so I look at it as, if you're going to have success, if you're going to build a business, you can't be just doing it for the clicks. You can't be just doing it for those headlines. And
Agreed.
so you have to write about things that you enjoy and that you care about and everything else. And so one of the ones that I really enjoyed was the 7 deadly sins of travel hacking. And so I like to write sometimes, popular books and everything, and kind of take like the concepts and apply that to travel hacking, or earning miles and points and everything like that. And so I thought it was really cool. I went through like the 7 deadly sins and how they apply to travel hacking, and like gluttony, for example. Like you can't just take all the miles and points and just save them and never use
Right.
them. You got to actually spend them, because unlike your 401k or your other investments, they will actually decline in value over time. Miles
Hmm.
and points are a depreciating asset, kind of like your car. And so I always tell people, have a redemption in mind. Think about where you want to go. Think about the hotels that are going to be at that place, and focus on earning that currency, and then redeem them, and then move on to the next one, right?
Sure.
And so you don't want to be gluttonous with your miles and points, because you're going to have all these hundreds of thousands or millions of miles and points, and them just sitting there. I mean, at that point, it's just a vanity metric.
For what? Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
so, like, honestly, nobody cares how many miles and points you have, right? Uh, Go and redeem them and create those experiences. And especially, like we talk about, like, our kids are young, and I'm waiting. Hopefully, I'm going to extend this for as long as I can. But at some point, they're going to be like, hey, do you want to go to like the southern tip of Africa and go see like penguins and stuff like that? They're like, nah, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends. And
They should go see the Penguins. We did that in 2019. It's pretty cool.
I know, and but at a certain point, like, kids become teenagers, right? And your
Mhm.
parents aren't as cool anymore and stuff like that. And so I try to create as many of these experiences now as possible. So how hopefully we can prolong the fact that I'm, in my mind anyways, and hopefully a little bit in their mind, that I'm actually cool to hang out with.
Sure, sure, that's great. So, I mean, being a content creator, if I'm sitting there listening to this show and I'm like, I really should be creating more content for, my business or whatever I do for a living, what advice do you have for those content creators who are either looking to get started or just starting out?
Yeah, the number one thing is just being consistent. You have to like your audience, like if they like your stuff, like they want to make sure that every time they log onto your site or tap into your podcast queue, that there's something new. There's something interesting for them. And so, like with my podcast, every Monday since it launched in September 18, every Monday I've had a new episode. So, like, just knowing that every time they log in, they're going to get a different city, a different expert, some new tips and new inspiration to travel is huge. And so, I mean, has my podcast gone parabolic? Not yet. Maybe after being exposed to your audience, it will, you know,
We have a
but
lot
the
of
main,
people who love to travel
yeah,
listening, so maybe.
absolutely. But the main thing is like my podcast has consistently grown and going higher and higher and higher because I keep promoting and keep pushing content and everything else like that. And on top of that is never stop learning, right? Like there's always new things evolving. There's always new social media and different strategies and stuff like that. Attending conferences like FinCon that we've been to, reading different books, reading people's blog posts. There's always something new that you could be learning, and so you can't be stagnant. Like so, focus on learning what they have to offer because whether you're buying somebody's book, like I see your book back there in the back corner there, like that's one of the cheapest ways to get somebody's knowledge, right? For $20, essentially, you're getting somebody's best knowledge and information and tactics and strategies. Versus like if somebody wanted to sit down with you and have a consultation and say, hey, tell me what's the best thing I can do for my site. You'd be probably charging two, three, $400 an hour, right? But somebody can get your book for $20 and get all your best information. And so it's a matter of you know, taking a little bit of your time to spend to read, to listen, and just to talk and meet with people. And that's going to be huge as far as helping to propel you forward.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Consistency and learning is definitely two major keys to content creation. So I appreciate that. And Lee, listen, we're all about joy here on the Mitlin Money Mindset. That's what we're all about. And we ask each of our guests the same last question, you included, which is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
Well, like we talked about, I sit at my desk all day, every day, creating content and everything like that, or sitting at the
Or on the
soccer
soccer
fields
field.
and everything like that. But so one of the things I always do that is I have to make sure I do some stretching every day. So I have the Peloton app, and so I always take 5 or 10 minutes every day to do some stretching because if you're sitting there in that seated position all day every day, your body starts to tense up and everything like that. And so getting that stretch is always good. We also have an infrared sauna in my house, and I
Okay.
take some time in there, 20, 30 minutes, and I just sit there and do some reading, whether it's with the paper or a book, and sweat it out a little bit. Do a little reading and kind of gets my mind off of things and my body loose and relaxed and ready to rock and roll and create some more content.
Great stuff. Yeah, I actually use the Peloton app almost daily for meditation, and
Hmm.
I ride almost daily. At least
Yeah.
I try to. So that brings me a lot of joy too. So I'm glad
Nice.
others are getting that as well. So Lee, we're going to have all of your information in the show notes. But if people want to learn more about you, read Bald Thoughts, or see or listen, I should say, to the podcast We Travel There, what's the easiest and the best place for them to learn more and connect with you?
Yeah, like you said, just go to baldthoughts.com. You're going to see, all the different articles. If you have questions, reach out to me, on Instagram or Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Um, or, subscribe to the podcast, right? Again, we have new episodes every Monday. We have over 300 episodes for cities all over the world. And if somebody's interested in representing their city and sharing their tips, I'd love for them to come on the podcast and help inspire more people to travel.
Awesome. Lee, thank you so much. I am inspired to try to implement a travel hack and save 90% on my next trip. So we'll see if we can make that happen. And I thank you sharing some great takeaways for our listeners, and enjoy your day.
All right. Thank you. You too.